meeting. My name is Ralph Pakula. I'm the Public Works Director for the Village of Lamont. And up here we have our Water Department, Jerry Therese, Brian Wojciechowski, and Sylvia and Robbie from HR Green, who's the engineering firm that we've partnered with to help us out through this program, and Linda Molitor, who is going to be taking notes on the meeting. So what we're going to present to you today is a slideshow and some information on what's going to happen in the future on replacing these lines, how it's going to happen, you know, where the money's going to come from. And if we don't know the answers to your questions tonight, we will definitely get back to you and get them to you. I'm assuming that you all think that you have lead lines. Just assuming. Okay, just maybe not, but we have more people here. Sorry. Come on in. So yeah, so if we don't have the answers to your questions tonight, we'll get them to you. And if it has to be brought to the board, any of your questions, we'll do that as well. So what we have is we have Sylvia, who's going to present her PowerPoint presentation to you. It has a lot of information in it. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for coming this evening. As Ralph mentioned, I'm the project engineer on this project. So what we'll be talking about is the lead service line replacement program. So first, I wanted to kind of briefly go over the questions that we'll be answering today. And if we don't answer one of your questions, there'll be time to answer those as well at the end. So the questions we'll be answering is, what is the purpose of this project? What are water service lines? What are the typical water service line materials? Why are lead service lines a public health concern? How do I know if my house or building has a lead service line? How do I submit the lead service line questionnaire? What are the initial steps that the village will be taking for the lead service line replacement program? And how do I reduce my exposure to lead? So first, the project purpose. Fairly recently, in January 2022, the state of Illinois passed a law known as the Lead Service Line Replacement and Notification Act. And so this law requires that any community water supply that services residents must gather the water service line materials for every property supplied with drinking water. So this includes the village of Lamont, since they supply drinking water. So every property, we have to essentially have an inventory of what that material is made of. And then the village is also required to develop the lead service line replacement plan. So first we need to know how many lead service lines we have, and then we'll put together a plan. So the village needs your help. So if your house was built before 1986 and is connected to the Village of Lamont water supply, then we're asking you to fill out the lead service line questionnaire. And if you are not sure when your house was built, we encourage you to just go through the exercise and fill out the questionnaire so that we can gather that data. And so this will not apply to you if you do not receive a water bill from the Village of Lamont. Chances are you're not being serviced by the village with potable water. If you're on a private well, whether it's your home, building, or subdivision, this doesn't apply to you. And then also, if you're in unincorporated areas of Lamont Township that is not serviced by the Village of Lamont, then this also does not apply to you. Yes?
I'm sorry to ask a question, but I might not even need it either. How fixed is that 1986 date? My house was built in 1998.
We will get to that.
Well, if he doesn't,
Yeah.
if he doesn't need to be here,
It's still,
if it was built in 98, there's no way it's lead.
Yeah, probably not, yeah.
That's all.
You're probably good, yeah.
I hate to leave your, I would like to stay for your meeting.
No.
No worries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
No problem. Okay, so what are water service lines? So many of us probably know, but just wanted to give a quick explanation. So the water service line is essentially the small pipe that's connected from the village's water main to the house. So essentially it brings water into your house, and there's a public and private side. The public side ends at the property boundary, and then the private side is, from that property boundary into the house. And so the village has a pretty good record of what's going on the public side, but on the private side, we don't, because essentially you have to collect that data by entering the house, and so that is why we don't have that information. So what are the typical water service line materials? Well, there's lead. Congress banned lead service line pipes in 1986 to protect public health. So houses built after 1986 were required to have a different type of service material, most likely copper, but galvanized steel and plastic is sometimes found, but copper is pretty much the most common one. And so essentially, if your house was built before that, if you had one constructed, there wasn't anything to kind of replace those. It was just new construction after 1986 had to have that water service line made out of, essentially not lead. So why are lead service lines a public health concern? Well, there's many sources of lead within a home potentially. Most likely the lead service line, but sometimes the plumbing, the faucets might have lead as well. And so what happens is that if it's a lead pipe, you have the pipe and then water goes through it, and essentially it can corrode a little bit, and when it corrodes, the lead can leach into the water. And so then you would be exposed to lead in your drinking water. So why are lead service lines a public health concern? Because lead is toxic. It's a toxic metal that is harmful when inhaled or swallowed. So you have to inhale or swallow to become, negatively impacted. It's most concerning for children because a smaller amount of lead is necessary to have a big impact. So for kids, it can result in behavior problems, lower IQ, hearing loss, learning disabilities, nervous system damage, kidney damage, and so on. Pregnant women are also very vulnerable because it can lead to miscarriages, the fetus could slow in growth, and so on. But if you're not a child or a pregnant woman, you could still be impacted by lead. So for adults, essentially it can cause memory loss, lack of concentration, high blood pressure, joint and muscle pain, and so on. And so what happens with lead is that it essentially accumulates in your body over time, and it gets stored in your bones. So how do I know if my house has lead piping or lead fixtures? So houses constructed before 1986 might have a lead service line. Doesn't necessarily mean that you do, but it might. Say you have a house from, the 1900s, maybe it was rehabbed over time and someone had replaced that line. Or they might have not built the line with lead in the first place. So we really don't know, and hence why we're asking any house that was built before 1986 to share this information with us. And another thing to note is that plumbing products actually sold between 1986 and 2014 were still allowed to contain up to 8% lead. So if your fixtures are older than 2014, there might be some lead in it. After that, they essentially changed the definition of what lead-free means. And so now plumbing fixtures and anything after 2014 essentially has very, 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 very small amounts of lead. And so the best way to identify what material your pipe is by following the pipe identification brochure. I think we pass it around. It kind of looks like this, and it's on the screen as well. And so we will also be walking through essentially the steps within the brochure here today. So, step number 1 is to find your water service line entering the building. So typically it will be in your basement, the basement floor or basement wall. If you don't have a basement, maybe it's in the crawl space. If you don't have a basement or a crawl space, it's probably on the ground level through the floor or wall or something. Essentially looks like the schematic over here on the slide. You'll see the pipe entering your home. It'll go into a shutoff valve, so this is where you would turn off your water if you ever had to repair anything. And then it goes through the water meter where it collects, how much water you're using. So where you want to test is essentially right where the pipe is entering your building. So it says test here. So that's where we want to test it. And then what you're going to do is something called the scratch, magnet, and tapping test. So for the scratch test, what you do is you take either a coin or like a flathead screwdriver, and you just lightly scratch the pipe. Not too hard, you don't want to puncture it, don't use anything sharp, just lightly scratch it and observe what happened. And on the next slide, we'll have a guide of what happens in each step. So second, magnet. Is it going to stick to the pipe or not? And then tapping test. You tap it with a coin and you listen and what kind of sound it makes. And then, like I said, on the next slide, we'll talk through what the results of each of those tests mean. And then, after you do that, we asked for you to submit the results to the questionnaire. So this is available you could scan the QR code with your phone. You just take a picture, and it takes you straight to the survey. I believe it was sent in the info brochure things in the mail. It's on the Lamont website, too, if you need it. So that's how you get access to the survey. Okay, so let's say you did the scratch magnet and tapping test. What does it mean? So your service line is lead. If you scratched it and it became shiny and silver, when you took the magnet, it didn't stick. And when you tapped it with a coin, you heard like a dull noise. If it's copper, when you scratch it, it looks like a penny. A magnet won't stick, and you'll hear a metallic ringing noise. And then galvanized steel, when you scratch it, it's going to remain a dull gray. A magnet will stick, and when you tap it with a coin, you'll hear a metallic ringing noise. So based on that, you can pick which pipe you have. So how do you submit the questionnaire? We've provided the QR code, so you go to this website, and so this is what you'll see. You'll see it asks for your first name, last name. We do ask for contact information in case we need to follow up with you. So we ask for the phone number, email, property address. So for this one, if you type in your address, say it's like 218 Main Street, there will be options that pop up. Just make sure you click Lamont and not like Colorado or something. So make sure you're clicking the right location. Then your account number, if you know what that is, it's on your water bill. Type of occupancy, whether you're an owner or a renter. And then the next one is pipe information. So that's just another link to this brochure. It'll send you right back to this to help you in case you haven't figured it out yet. Okay, water service line material. So this is the most important one. So pick the one that best fits. you know, based on the tapping magnet and scratch test. And if you don't know, it's okay to hit I don't know. Brian will follow up with you on that and answer your questions. Your home was built, so we provide a range for you in case you don't know the exact date. So pick the one that best fits your house, and then if you do know the exact date, you can click on the last option. It says, if known, please enter year here, and then you can just type it in. Water service line install date. So typically this is, you know, when the house was built, but, you know, like I've mentioned before, if you had like a rehab to your house, maybe the water service line install date is different from when your house was built, or if you converted from a well to the public water supply or something like that. And then source of information. So how did you determine the material of your service line? Did you follow the brochure? Do you have some records? Did you call a plumber and asked? So please specify which one you did. And then lastly, the photo. So please make sure to take some good photos so that we can we can verify that you've identified the right material type. So this is a good example that we found. You can put up to one to 4 pictures. So here they showed us a picture. They found the meter. They found the valve. So here it is. And then they have a close-up of the pipe where it comes in to the building, and you can tell it's copper. So in some instances, like if it's super corroded, you might not be able to tell. It might not look, you know, until you do the scratch test and like wipe off all that gunk on it, you might not be able to tell. And what Brian has told me is that it's easier to actually use your phone for this. It's more convenient because you could take the photos on your phone or iPad and then upload it directly instead of going on your computer and loading the pictures up to your computer and then on the website and so on. So it's easier with the phone or an iPad or something that has the actual photos that you're taking on that particular device. So what are the initial steps for the Village's lead service line replacement program? So first, step 1 and 2 is, you know, we're relying on you guys to help us out, you know, identifying the material in your house or building, and then also filling out and submitting the questionnaire. So only then will we know how many there are in the community, because we could have 100 or we could have 1,000. And so there's going to be a difference in cost. So after we compile all the results, then we'll be able to prepare a more detailed plan and kind of see what the best option is. Obviously, if there's a lot of them, it'll take a couple years to get through everybody. But you know, if there's only a couple, maybe it won't be as, you know, difficult to get those replaced. So we're asking everyone to respond to the questionnaire by August 15th, and that will allow us to get started on the planning. Essentially what the village is doing is applying for a low interest loan from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. So they offer an interest rate that's typically below 2%. It's not too bad. And so the first step for applying to that loan is preparing a project plan, which provides a detailed breakdown of the schedule, the anticipated cost, and, you know, whether that's spread across a certain amount of years or whatnot. So essentially, until we know how many there are in the community, it's really hard to, you know, tell you when this replacement will happen. But the village will keep you posted as we learn more information. So let's say you found that your water service line is lead. So this is what you can do to reduce your exposure. Always use water from the cold water tap for drinking, cooking, and baby formula. Don't use the hot water tap because the higher temperature corrodes the pipe more, and so the hot water tap has more lead in it. If you use the cold water tap, if you want it to be hot, just put it on the stove and heat it up. But use the cold water tap for drinking, cooking, and baby formula. The next thing to do is remove and clean your faucet aerator regularly. So the aerator is on the very edge of your faucet. You typically just unscrew it and then clean it out, or if it looks, like it's been through the war or something, maybe replace it. They're pretty cost effective. But yeah, rinse it out, and while you're cleaning it, also flush out your faucet a little bit to get all that debris out, because that aerator kind of blocks debris from being able to leave. So if you kind of flush it out too, that might help. You can also use an alternative water source for drinking and cooking. It's okay to bathe in it as long as you're not inhaling it or breathing it in. So, maybe bottled water might be a better fit for you in the meantime. And then if you're going to use it for drinking, run your water out, essentially flush your pipes out a little bit before you grab some to drink. So essentially, if that water is kind of sitting in your pipes that are made of lead, that lead will kind of leach more into the water. So if you flush that out and kind of get some fresh water through there, that'll have a lower lead concentration. And then there's also water filters you can use, but make sure they're certified to remove lead. So what you'll want to look for is making sure that they meet the NSF/ANSI standard 53. And usually that has like a logo, one of the logos that are shown here, you'll see one of those. And so if you look at a Brita filter on the side or something, it'll say certified under standard 53, and it'll have an NSF logo on it as well. And lastly, replacing your lead service line. That's the best way to reduce your exposure to lead. It can be a costly thing to do. It's a little less expensive to replace the plumbing fixtures, but still pretty expensive. So that's the best thing, but also the most expensive option for us. So with that, first I'll say that if you have questions, feel free to call Brian or Jerry. Their contact info is here. And then I'll briefly turn it over to the village to talk a little bit more before we answer questions.
Thank you, Sylvia. Great job. Okay, if anybody has questions, please come up to the podium and let us have it. And if we don't answer your questions today, we'll get your answers hopefully soon and get back to you. So, anybody? Okay.
Who's actually paying for the line replacement into the home? Is it the homeowners itself, or is the village paying for it?
The village.
Okay, so the law was passed in January 22. You know my lead pipe broke going into my house last July. I did call water department out because we had water. We wound up calling a plumber. We knew about the law. We called and said, hey, this is on the books. You guys are supposed to be paying for this according to what the law states. I was told, not yet. But the law was on the books in last year. In January, the pipe broke in June or July. We did have it replaced to the tune of $6,000. We did find a better plumber than the first one that came in at $40,000. But is there anything, seeing as it was on the books last year prior to the pipe breaking, which was, I was told, well, you could just let it leak, which I wasn't paying for the water, the village was, which would have drained one of the wells if I would have just let it continue to leak until the village decided to pay for it. Is there any reimbursement that we will get, considering that we had to do?
I can bring that to the board.
Okay,
And that's a board decision, you know that.
right.
So yeah, I mean, I understand your point, but I can say that the village isn't required to enforce the law until
27.
27.
That's what
So,
we
and
have to
that's,
start.
and I will.
The
bring
way
it to
I
the
read the
board.
law,
Yeah.
it states it has to be completed by that time.
Yeah, so I'll bring it to the board and I can discuss it with them,
Okay.
and that's ultimately their.
I mean, I
decision.
understand we're not gonna get it all back, cause that was a
Right.
plumber that we had to hire ourselves.
Right.
But I didn't the way you had put it was, it'll be a low interest bearing that the homeowner is gonna be responsible to pay for these lines coming in, cause it's all the way in the house.
No, it's a low interest loan for the village
Village.
to acquire.
Okay.
Let me,
Take care of
if I could clarify that, Ralph, so typically how it happens is, it's a responsibility of the village to replace the lead service line, that's what the law says, because they are supplying the water to the customer. Some communities, what they have in their ordinance, that they cannot, this is public money, so public money cannot be used for private improvements. So there is a clause in the IEPA, the money, EPA, whatever money they give you, it's public money.
Right, I know.
The requirement, public money cannot be used for private improvements. But what they're trying to do it is IEPA has given a variance for lead service line replacement, that money could be used for private improvements. But then the ordinance in some communities says that the money cannot be used for private improvements, so those communities are working through the options to do that, because at the end of the day, they wanna make sure the thing gets fixed. They wanna help the residents to fix it, so they will work through it. So the loan has to be done for both the public and the private side.
Yeah, and that's what I'll do, I'll bring it to the board.
Okay,
And, you know, and we'll discuss it with them, and if they decide that there is reimbursement,
right, I mean, I
Yes.
don't know what they're saying is, okay, it should only cost 1,500, because that's what we're gonna tell them. It's gonna be 1,500 a house. I understand we already paid that 6,000, but if it's like flat out, this is what it's gonna cost per home, if there's any reimbursement.
yeah, no, I understand, I get it, yeah, that's what I'll do.
Okay,
And,
I appreciate it.
obviously, I know we will.
Uh-oh.
Hey, it's fixed now.
Come on.
Hey, it's fixed now, it's all
No,
copper.
no,
Oh,
thank
do
you.
we have to notify you that it's been replaced? I mean, they know that it's been replaced, but do I have to actually fill that out that states?
If you could, that would
Okay,
be
that-
helpful, just so we can
Because
cross
it
it
got,
off the list.
it was
Yeah.
replaced a year ago.
Yeah,
All
that would
right.
be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
anybody else? Questions? Come on up.
We moved out to Lamont 5 years ago, and I was just curious about the quality of the water itself, not so much the lead, the copper, or the galvanized. I ran my air filters and the filters in the faucets and everything, they're clogging up like crazy. I put an inline filter inside the house, and it probably lasts maybe 30 days of that, and they come out brown. And I'm not sure if that's, it has nothing to do with the lead or anything like that, it's the rusty pipes.
Well,
I have-
where you live, I don't know what your subdivision is, or
I'm off Freehoff,
you're off of Freehold.
yes.
So, it's an older water main, and, all the water mains are made of ductile iron.
Okay.
So they're sitting in water, they're gonna rust.
I mean, this, is the water okay to drink?
Oh, certainly, we do have the water quality report.
So if you're
I
getting
have-
rust in your filters,
There's
so,
15 days.
yeah. Is there any way we can help them out as far as removing the meter and doing a flush of thorough
I
flush?
have, yeah,
I changed the filter today,
Yeah,
it looks like that, I don't know if it can be analyzed or anything, to see if it's healthy to, drink the water.
well, it's helpful.
Well-
I mean,
BEP requires me to grab water samples
Okay.
throughout the town.
Right.
So, every 2 weeks, I grab 15 water samples from all, you know, the whole section around.
Okay.
And I send them to the lab. And
Okay,
then the EPA gets those results, and all our samples come back fine. But everything is fine to drink.
okay,
So we haven't had any violations. Here's a copy of the water quality report
okay.
from last year.
Can I have this?
Yes.
It's online as well.
Okay,
Yeah, we're required to do that for the EPA every year.
I have a few
Okay.
extras to if anybody else would care to grab one.
okay, like I said, I was, looking at it, and it's like, I just did it today, and it came out like this
So
again.
did you come from the city area, city water?
I'm on, 306 Freehoff.
No, I mean, where did you come from? Where did you move from?
Prior
Oh, from?
Yeah.
I was in Evergreen Park.
You had city water,
Yeah,
that's lake water. I'm not making excuses, but we have our own wells.
okay,
And that, like Jerry said, that water main is older, and sometimes you can get rustled up, and you can get rust.
that much?
Sometimes, yes, unfortunately, sometimes.
Okay,
Just, maybe we can, 306 Freehoff, you said?
yeah.
Maybe we can have Brian or Jerry stop by
I
and
appreciate it,
discuss
like
it
I
more.
said,
Yeah.
I do have this filter out in the car. I don't know if you could send this in to have it analyzed or anything?
Yeah,
Really,
that wouldn't
you know,
help
it's-
it.
Wouldn't be worth it?
That wouldn't help it.
Okay,
We can take a sample and bring your water coming right out of the faucet to the lab.
okay,
Yeah.
Just call the Public Works.
okay, will do.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much.
One more thing to add, we
Yeah.
did have a water main replacement program on Hillview,
Okay,
so that could have caused some sternness, a little bit
Turn
more
the
rust.
water on and off.
Right,
This
a
has
bit
been-
more, a little rust down into the line too as well, so that's,
I
you know.
put this in 11/14/2019, and every 15, between 15 and 30 days, I've been replacing it, and it's not getting any better. So I don't know how much damage, the water lines or anything.
But we can take a look, we can stop by
Okay.
and take a look.
Appreciate it.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Appreciate it.
Talk to you afterwards or address?
Well, no. Brian, you wanna take down this number?
Yeah.
306 Freehoff.
Got it, 306 Freehoff. I can talk to you after, because it's being recorded,
Okay.
give out your feedback.
Thank you.
I know there's another question about how the process of the water line replacement will be done. That was given to me before the meeting started. In the bid specs, when we go bid this out to replace these lines, ideally, we wouldn't want open trench. We wouldn't want it actually dug up, we want it bored. That's the way the contractors are doing it now. So the most important thing, if you do have a lead line, I was discussing it with this lady here before, is to take pictures. Take pictures of where the water line comes in your house before and after the work is done. This way, there's no question about you ruined my foundation, and it wasn't like this before. It just alleviates a huge headache going down, this road. So ideally, it would be bored and not open cut, open trench. And then when they get to your foundation, they obviously have to penetrate it at some point to run the new line in, or take the old line out and put in the new one. So hopefully that helps your question.
And who does that, the village?
The contractor that the village will hire. We won't, as a public works department, we wouldn't do it. It'd be a licensed plumber. Yes.
And they'll be coming into the house, and we have to take out time off work, because I've got dogs.
Okay, yeah, unfortunately, they have to go into the house. Yeah, there's no way around that. So, yeah. That's gonna have to be coordinated between the homeowner and the plumber.
Okay, so we'll get notice to be able to,
Do you have a lead line?
I built in 1894, supposedly. And
Well, you never know,
Yeah.
right?
I could be lucky.
You never know,
Yeah,
so
we'll check.
make sure you check it
Yeah.
out, yeah. And if you need help, let us know. We'll help you, of course.
The rule requires you need to replace the line all the way up to the meter, so they have to come to the house to make the connection.
As long as I'm given plenty of warning, because obviously we'll have to take them off.
Yeah, you get a lot of,
Dogs
you
have-
get a lot of emails saying that you wanna do it and schedule the work around it, so. The contract may be doing on block, and every block and a week or something, so you'll have advance notice.
And I believe by law, we're required to notify you at least 30 days in advance.
That would be
Yeah.
taking a week, or giving my work a week's notice, is not really.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Anyone else have questions? Comments? Yes.
So right now, if your lead line breaks, do you have to get it replaced, or can you get it repaired?
If your line is broken right now or tomorrow, you cannot put lead back in. Right?
You can't even repair it, you have to replace it.
Not even if you sign some kind of a waiver saying, I understand I have
Well, I
lead?
don't know if you're gonna find a plumber that will do that.
You don't think you're gonna find a plumber to do it anyway, so it's a
No,
moot
because
point.
if they're not allowed to just make a repair. And if there is a repair made, it can only be a temporary, or according to the EPA, then it's gotta get changed all the way out.
And the village would never approve it. The village wouldn't. If we inspected it, the village wouldn't approve it and pass it.
Some villages do.
No, no, it's against the law. Any type of lead repair is,
Now, your question is, if you have a pipe coming into the house and it's cracked, you wanna just replace the section of the pipe?
I was thinking of the line itself,
So you mean the line from the meter or?
one that you're gonna replace in a few years.
Eventually, I mean, obviously you, my rationale for you is, why do you wanna replace it? Wait for the village to help you replace it. Because I thought you would just wanna replace a small section of the pipe coming to the house, maybe you wanna repair it, which we don't wanna do it.
Robbie, I think he said if you had a leak or it was
Oh,
broken.
Yeah, if something's
You can't make
broken,
a repair on it, you have to
it
replace it.
has to be replaced. It can't just be repaired until this work gets done.
Just one other quick question on it. Is it going to be, like when we had ours done, it went from the V-Box to the residence? What about from the V-Box out to the line out in the street?
Well, as far as the village is, we've replaced most of our water mains. We have like a couple of blocks that we haven't, so we're already copper from the main to the V-Box on 99.9%.
Okay.
And that cost will not be passed on to the homeowners as far as otherwise, other than taxes and.
you won't get any unexpected bills. Marge?
Okay. If you wanna ask,
Yeah.
okay, they have a date in here, 1986. So if any,
You don't have lead. Just so you know. I know that for 100% fact, you don't have lead.
can I go home now?
Sure. I was surprised to see you walk in, but no, I mean, you don't have lead, Marge.
Okay,
Guaranteed.
piece of cake.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I did the tests on my line, and it indicates that it's most likely lead. I have a 1-year-old child, and I'm wondering, like bathing with hot water, are there certain precautions that we need to take with that? To reduce
Well,
exposure?
I think in Sylvia's
PowerPoint.
presentation. What'd you say, Brian?
I was just saying.
Yeah, yeah, there was some
It's
helpful
okay to
hints.
bathe in it, but, you know, with children, if they're consuming it while they're bathing, then you wanna be careful, so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any other tips other than that.
Yeah,
I wish I
sure.
did.
You're really worried you can get the water, warm it up in a stove and then use it for the baby's bath too, you know, so you're not using the water coming from the water heater. That the problem is water coming to the water heater is coming to the pipe and it's slightly bringing the lead in, so you may wanna collect cold water, warm it up on the stove. I mean, it's a baby, you're not gonna need a gallon, so much of water you put. This is just a suggestion, I mean.
Yeah, right. Makes sense.
There's no.
I have one more question.
Yes.
So if you come in and you bore whatever you need to do and take the lead pipe up, replace it, and if something else breaks inside the house, is that your liability or any
Well,
pipes?
yeah, I mean, it all depends on the situation, I guess. I mean, the licensed plumber is gonna know that he's not gonna be able to manhandle all the pipes. And I would assume if there's a chain reaction of problems, we would work with the resident to, you know, say it wasn't like this before, obviously, right? That's why pictures are very important. So, we would work with the resident if that became, you know, an issue. But that concludes our meeting, I believe, if there's no other questions from you guys. You'll see yourself on YouTube. Enjoy. I'm sure the board members and the mayor are going to view this meeting as well. But I will definitely bring your issue to them and discuss. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you guys for showing up, appreciate it. Good night.
Thank you.